That's great. I came along just to cough in your face. Not your face, your ear. Hi, everybody. How's it going? You see why I would want the blue phone, right? You see this. It would match everything. Okay, so why don't we just get started? Actually, really quickly, let me say hey to Hank, Frank, Webb, Donna, David, Rob, Eugene, Brian, John, Bill. Hi, everybody. And other people who haven't said anything yet, because it looks like there are a few people out there. We're just going to do a quick recap today of some of the stuff that's gone on with the Big Sur. Not so much dwelling on Thursday, because Thursday was huge, but what's happened to people since. And afterwards, I would love to hear what you guys have to say as well. You can try to tweet me during the show, but you know how I am as far as looking at comments and things like that as it's going on. So, oh well. See, Bill's already asking the question. I don't know, Bill. I don't know the answer to your question. Although I think I know somebody who has a complaint kind of like that. So we'll get to that in a moment. What say we go ahead and begin? I think I will. A weekend in Big Sur. It is Monday, the 16th of November, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. I say a weekend in Big Sur, but it's from now on, right? Until like the next place. Where is the next place they're going to send us in California? Hi, I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you to another edition of macOS Ken Live. This is a thing that we do live on YouTube every Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places, tackling an Apple topic or two. Very glad to have you here, whether you're here live or less live. You're plenty alive wherever you are. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Second half of the show, we're going to hear from some people who have had some issues with the recent Big Sur move. Not all complaints. Some are pretty big, though. So we'll get to that. First half of the show, though, I'll tell you a little bit about my move to Big Sur and also talk about, again, some problems that are mostly coming from an Apple Insider piece. I kind of hate this time going to an operating system because all you ever hear about is the trouble, right? Now, in fairness, Apple has spent months telling us how awesome it's going to be. So we've heard plenty about how awesome it's going to be. This is the time where we hear about issues people have had. The Apple Insider piece that I mentioned to you does, of course, start with how troublesome Thursday's downloads were. They don't even get in this to the whole thing that happened with Apple Pay and with the not being able to run third-party apps and stuff like that. And I would imagine we're going to talk about that later this week. I've had a little bit of a chance to read up on it. Of course, I covered on Monday's macOS Ken. I actually want to talk to maybe some of the guys at Secure Mac or something, get a greater understanding. Because it feels to me like what was happening with the third-party thing was security stuff that we all knew that Apple did. We all knew that notarization or the notary check thing happened. We all knew that the gatekeeper thing happened. I don't think we were really aware of how often it happened and how easily it could bork everything if everything gets borked. So now there are people who are saying, like that essay, that we don't own our computers and that we're basically getting permission from Apple to run stuff. And I guess you can sort of technically see that and say that at the same time Apple is saying it's a safety check. And so the question is, do you believe Apple when they say it's a safety check? And if you do, then you knew this was coming, you didn't think about it. And if you don't, who do you believe? So that's the thing we're not talking about today. You're welcome. The biggest issue that's happening with some of the people moving to Big Sur is just being locked out of their computer entirely. And I got an email from somebody that I will share with you in the second half of the show. It is late 2013 and mid 2014, 13-inch MacBook Pros specifically. And it doesn't sound like it's all of them, but enough of them are happening that people are like, wow, that's kind of bad. Because when they try to make the move to Big Sur, what they get is just a black screen. And no amount of key, whatever, makes that, fixes it. I've heard of some people trying to run their battery out. Again, we will hear from somebody who is trying something similar to that. That's a real issue. Almost everything else that I've heard about is like, oh, it's annoying, but they'll get that fixed, you know? This came out of beta. The reason Apple says don't run a beta on a mission critical machine is because something might happen to your machine. This came out of beta and it's completely hosing some machines. Don't know how many. Again, enough that there is a listener to the various things that I do who's written to me who has had the same problem that was mentioned in Apple Insider. And I know I talked about it on Monday's macOS Ken as well. Can't remember where that was. We'll get more into that in a bit. As far as functionality, this is one that I'm having. Apple Insider brings it up. My Apple Watch is not unlocking my Mac anymore. And I thought, oh, well, I got to go in and reset that again. And so I went in to reset it, and the setting was actually there, but I thought, okay, well, I need to reset it. So I did. And it still won't unlock it, to the point that I actually restarted my Apple Watch thinking maybe there was something there. Lost a stand hour, which was annoying. It was at midnight last night, so I have 24 hours to make up that one stand hour I lost. I have a Series 3. Apple Insider says that some Series 6 and some Series 5 are not unlocking the Mac. I don't see anything that says your Series 3 won't do that anymore. I will say if that ends up being the case, that's going to be incredibly frustrating because my watch had no problem doing that on Catalina. Now, conversely, something that I was constantly having a problem with on Catalina is working just fine. Copying something on my phone and pasting it into Pages on my Mac or vice versa works like a champ, spins like a top, whatever you're supposed to say there. That's going great. So little connectivity things are not, some little connectivity things are happening. The thing, though, where my watch opens my computer is not happening. And you think, well, so what? Because I've got Touch ID, or I can just type something in. Boy, when you lose that convenience, you really notice it. Because I won't even say a bad habit. It's fine. I have a habit of, I close my computer, I go to do something else. I remember one thing I wanted to do. And usually that's just as simple as sitting back down at your computer and it pops up. And now it keeps saying, hey, do this and do this. And oh, if you want to unlock it with your watch, go into settings and change that thing, which still doesn't work. Now, let me stop there and say the problem that I have with these kinds of moves is all we ever hear about is the bad stuff. I am right now talking to you on a computer that had a completely different operating system on Friday. I have produced 1, 2, 3 shows on a computer that had a completely different operating system on Friday. The biggest problem that I have had is my watch will not unlock my computer. That's kind of amazing. That's well done for most people. The problem is Apple trades on the whole "it just works" thing. And then when it suddenly doesn't just work, the problems are what you're going to hear about. I shouldn't actually say that I've had no problem other than that, but my problem isn't really with Apple on that one. It's with Rogue Amoeba. Love their products, love their stuff. I could do what I do without Audio Hijack Pro, but it would be much more difficult. That was the thing that I was most worried about making the move to Big Sur. And so I went and checked their website and they said, we're totally fine with Big Sur. They didn't say go ahead and update, but they didn't say don't update. They said compatibility with Big Sur. So I said, great. And I went ahead and upgraded and then was sitting down to record this week's In a Few Minutes with Mike Rose on Sunday and fired up Audio Hijack. And it said not compatible with your current operating system, which freaked me out. So I went back to the Rogue Amoeba site and they're like, yeah, we don't really recommend going to Big Sur because we're not sure about everything. It ended up being fine. It took like 5 more minutes of my time. It was just kind of weird that they, on their website, when I went to check, they said, yeah, we're good. And then after I'd upgraded, they're like, we're not so sure we're good. Turns out they're fine. I would say you could go ahead and do it. Some users are discovering that the upgrade to Big Sur has resulted in an issue where the main menu bar just goes solid black. That could be troubling. That could be an issue. Some people say they lost their transparency with their windows. That doesn't really seem like a problem, though. And then everything else in the Apple Insider piece tends to be, I heard about this one guy who, or I heard about this one gal who, right? It seems like those are the biggest issues. There's like one where the classic screensaver isn't working. So use a new screensaver. I mean, that's not really a problem per se. There was one guy whose YubiKey Nano 5 that they use for smart card logins in Catalina isn't working in Big Sur. But again, they're literally saying one guy. They're literally saying they heard from one person, which is not to say that other people aren't also having that issue. How big a deal, though, can you make about one report from one person? Well, I guess pretty big if if you feel like it. I don't, though. Coming up in just a minute, we're going to talk to, or hear rather, from a couple of people, one of whom had actually, they both had pretty big problems, and then we'll do some other feedback stuff as well. I want to remind you really quickly, though, of some other stuff that I do. Let's talk about in a few minutes this week because we have a wonderful guest on. Mike Rose used to write for the unofficial Apple weblog. He also is a co-host on a show called The After Show. His co-host actually is celebrating a birthday today. Don't know if she's listening, but Kelly Guimont, happy birthday to you if you are. And if you're not, well, happy birthday to you anyway. You just won't know. Anyway, he's on this week, and we cover some of the virtual events from this fall from Apple and some other stuff that has escaped. Oh, what? Here are my notes right here, actually, from when I was talking with Mike. Yeah, we talked about some of the big Sur issues, rather. We talked about the new hardware and stuff from Apple. We talked about, again, with the virtual events and whether or not we're going back to work the way we used to go to work in the, once we quit saying hashtag these uncertain times, maybe we can start saying hashtag those uncertain times. So it's a fun week of shows. I do hope you'll check it out. It is called In a Few Minutes, and you can find that show wherever you find podcasts, or there's actually an audio version of it right here on YouTube as well. You can check out most of the stuff I do now actually on my YouTube page as well, youtube.com/KenRay. Right, so let's talk about some issues that some people have had. I already talked about the thing. I was going to leave it until now, and I forgot. Talked about the thing where my watch would not unlock my Mac, and also the Audio Hijack Pro thing. Talking to a friend of mine who likes the look and the visual design. The biggest problem that she's having with it is the menu bar seems bigger, which is not a huge deal, except she's got a 13-inch MacBook Pro. And so her feeling is that the small screen actually feels smaller with Big Sur. That said, like design changes, she figures she'll get used to it. I got to say, from a design point of view, I don't quite understand why they've done what they've done. Remember a few years ago when everything went flat and they were really excited about how flat everything was? And I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was fine. Most design changes, I'm like, that's fine. I can't remember the thing where they stopped doing things that looked like real world analogs. Can't remember what that word was. But like the voice recorder used to have the reel-to-reel thing that played. Being an audio guy, especially an audio guy who actually learned to cut tape with a razor blade and then, tape it back together with other tape, I sort of liked that just because it harkened back to an older time. But at some point, Apple said, no, we're done with that. We're not doing the, fake visualizations of real world things because we're using these computers. And I think it was around the same time, or maybe like a year or two later, is when they went flat, when their design went flat. And now if you go into settings, things are shaded. And it doesn't look real, but it doesn't look flat either. And it doesn't matter. Let me make that perfectly clear. It doesn't matter at all. But if you're going to say we did the biggest design change we've ever done in forever, the people are going to talk about the design. And personally, I'm not into it. It's fine. It's fine. I've mostly forgotten about it. I find some of the menus a tiny bit harder to read now, partly because I don't always wear my glasses and they don't seem to set off in the same way, but it's fine. I mean, that's not the kind of thing that's going to keep you from upgrading because then you'll never upgrade. Then you're done. You're stuck in Catalina forever with no security updates and no stabs and perfs and the whole thing, right? Personally, I'm not into it. My friend says it looks like modern design to her, and she thinks, it's a direction that she likes seeing it go. So, okay. Bigger issues. Do I want to do Ronald first, or do I want to do... I'll do Yuatsu, because Ronald's is a big one, and it actually answers a question, I think, about the 13-inch MacBook Pros. I may be pronouncing this wrong. I apologize. Yuetsu on Twitter. Yutsu, I believe. I had a few problems, starting with the, fact that he couldn't download it on Thursday, which we all had that problem if we tried to download it on Thursday. He was able to download it though, and then started it updating overnight Thursday night. See, I can't do that. I did this week. I started it updating and I watched The Mandalorian. And I think that was an awesome thing to do because otherwise I'll just sit there and watch my computer and assume that it's breaking. Every time that line doesn't move as fast as I think it should, I'll assume that something is going terribly wrong. So, on the one hand, props to Yuetsu for actually being able to walk away from it to the point that he went to sleep, for crying out loud. Man, I don't think I could do that. So anyway, he downloaded and then installed Big Sur overnight on Thursday, and then got a black screen the next day, but not the same black screen where everything was locked up because he still had the menu bar. He just couldn't do anything with it. So he took it to Apple, had to power off, get the SMC reset to get it back to normal. So that's good. Today, though, he says, I was doing my volunteer gig doing social media posts for a science podcast. I like to edit pics I find for the posts. I could save images I would find on a search, but when trying to open to edit them in preview, it wouldn't open. So another Apple support call to fix that. I'm curious, and unfortunately, I didn't get to write back to him until right before showtime. I'm curious whether you tried editing them in Photos, because that was part of the whole thing that Apple said was in Big Sur, Photos is better. Photos is better, and you'll be able to edit things more quickly and more easily in the Photos app. Yeah, I mean, there are workarounds for that one. That is a pain, not a deal breaker, I don't think. Not anything that would actually truly hamper your work, because there are all kinds of apps out there, including, I'm assuming, nope, because that's an M1 thing. I was going to say you can actually download some of the iOS apps, but that's not for the likes of you and me. That's for people getting the newest machines, which are showing up on people's doorsteps today. Ronald takes the cake for the biggest issues I've heard about. My fully functional 13-inch late 2013 MacBook Pro has been bricked by Big Sur, he says. It is stuck with nothing but a backlight on and a dark screen except during battery low situations. I have a Wednesday at 12:15 appointment scheduled. The problem appears to shut down the USB hub controller communications, which includes the internal USB connection to the keyboard. Therefore, no key combination has any effect. The power button is hardwired, not using the USB interface, so it works. The computer does chime when powering back on, acting like it just began to wake up from sleep into a bad state that it can't complete. Powering it off is accomplished after pressing the power button for several seconds. I tried running the battery out to interrupt the process and force the computer to truly restart upon getting enough power via charging the SMC. It was able to cause the processor to display messages on the screen to indicate the battery is low and asking, to connect to the power cord, with that little symbol that it gives you to do that. The power light is working the way the power light is supposed to work on his MagSafe connector. Miss the MagSafe connector. I would suspect revival will be accomplished by removing power and temporarily disconnecting the battery pack to truly interrupt the installation process it's locked up in, forcing the processor to vector to the recovery disk for a valid OS. See, he wins the Problem of the Day award because that stinks. Now, I'm assuming he's got another Mac because that's a pretty long email, although he might have sent that to me via his iPhone. I'm curious if you've had any similar issues, similar troubles. Do you have any gripes? I know there are people talking in the chat room. I may hear from them in just a moment. Unfortunately, though, I can't, read their thing and do the show at the same time because I'm just not that guy. But if you have some thoughts on how Big Sur has gone for you, I would love to hear them. Best thing to do is send me an email. You can leave a comment on this video, but the best thing to do is send me an email, info@macoscan.com. Yeah, I'm curious how it's going for you. For me, it's fine, whatever. That's what we're going to say in 2 weeks. Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock wood, do all those things. all the problems people are having will be forgotten. Things of the past, as they say, in the future. As I said before, we do this every day, Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. We would love it if you would join us. If you're in the chat room right now, please stay in the chat room. I will be by momentarily to say, hey, everybody else, talk to you soon. And then I sit here awkwardly. And I'm quiet. Hi, everybody. I hope nobody had a fantastic thing that they wanted to say in the show because I couldn't read it. You know how that goes because you've been here before. Unless you haven't been here before. Hey, look, there's Ronald. Ronald, we were just talking about you. Look at you. And here you are. I'm sorry about your issues with the computer. Okay, there's everybody saying hello. macOS Palo Alto. That's funny. You know what they should do? You know what they should do? Griffith Park. They should do Griffith Park. That's what I say. Because you got everything there. Do you know that Walt Disney, there's a carousel in Griffith Park still there. I've ridden it. And Walt Disney used to sit there and take his daughters or granddaughters, I think, to that carousel and started thinking, there ought to be a place where people can go. And at Disneyland, they actually have one of the horses from that carousel because the carousel is still there, but they have one of those horses from that carousel and one of the benches where he used to sit right as you come into Disneyland inside like a museum thing. Plus, you got the James Dean thing. You got the Griffith Park Observatory. It is this oasis in the middle of a bunch of stuff. Griffith Park for the next macOS. That's really not important, but I thought I would share it with you anyway. What? All right, Warren, will you send me an email about that? Warren says if you reinstall macOS over the existing install, it fixes the watch unlock thing. I know he says stupid, but it works. Will you send me an email and let me know more about that? Because I don't even know how to do that. And also, I kind of don't want to because I feel like that's tempting fate somehow. I got your email, Ronald. I didn't know what you were talking about in the first half, though, and I was doing all sorry. Ronald's talking about the fact that iOS 14.2 bricked his Apple Watch. He says, check your email. The first half of Ronald's email was actually about his Apple Watch, but we were just doing Big Sur today, so I left that off. Interesting. Warren also says the reason that the new loop bands, this is from macOS Ken earlier today, the reason the new loop bands aren't on the gift list is probably because you need their size. And that would ruin the surprise. It's true. Well, it's interesting. They should just give gift cards for the loop band. Okay. Yep. Okay. There's Ronald talking about his 13-inch. Yeah, I told everybody. Frank thinks the UI is cool with the half flat and half not. I think Frank's cool. I don't think Frank's right about that being cool. I mean him no offense. Did I hit record? Well, you're asking awfully late now, but yes, I did. Thank you, Webb. I appreciate that. Hello, Bob. Bob said good afternoon to everybody, so I'm saying hello to Bob. Frank says macOS in and out. Yeah, it's not just California anymore, though. Arizona, Texas. Yeah, you can't. It's not just California anymore, unfortunately. You could really confuse people and say Ontario. Oh, I don't think you really thought you were trying to be mean, Webb. Haha. When do I sleep? In the daytime, Randy. Thanks for asking. Um, if I'm good, I actually write for a lot of the day and I go to bed at a relatively decent hour, but the problem is I'm almost never good. So I end up usually like when you like I'm asleep about an hour after macOS can posts. And I've tried for years to change that schedule and it just doesn't work out well. So ideally, I'm in bed by 2 in the morning. In reality, it's usually about 5 because I'm a night owl. I have been forever. I will always stay up until the sun and never get up for it. Last slept in 1988. That's probably the last time I had a good sleep schedule, Frank. macOS Death Valley. I think Ronald would tell you they should retroactively name Big Sur that. Okay, Bill gets the last word for the day. He thinks that they should call it Ontario once it becomes one operating system, once they cross over. So it's the Mac and iOS. Although I don't know what you're talking about, Bill, because they're totally not merging. All right. Sorry to cut this short today, guys. I've actually got a thing in a little bit, but I appreciate it. I appreciate your being here. Thanks for hitting like. Thanks for coming by every day. It means so much. It's a tremendous amount of fun and actually boosts me right into not writing macOS Ken until 11 o'clock at night. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow.